very few college professors do what college professors are supposed to do, which is kind of break through outside campus into the conversation among smart people about what the world is about. And in other words, they don't kind of influence the broader culture directly. And you do, and you're an organic chemistry professor. How are you allowed to do this at Cornell? Are you allowed to kind of opine on economics, social policy, foreign policy? Like, what are your administrators saying when you do this?
I don't know if it's generally true, but Cornell's not giving me any guff. The only problem I had with Cornell, and we talked, we had breakfast and we talked a little bit about, I think my colleagues wish I would shut up, but they don't tell me to shut up, although, they've told me to stay on. I have kind of an intellectual Tourette syndrome. Where
stay in your lane.
Well, I'll be in the middle of class, like in March of 07. In the middle of class, no warning, I blurt out the banking system's about to collapse. I'd written about it in 02, but I said, I think it's about to collapse.
This is an organic chemistry class?
An organic chemistry class. And they looked at me and I just said, look, I think the entire banking system's going down the tubes now. And it took another year and a half to...
Did they say that's not a related discipline? What are you talking about?
No one gave me guff for that. What was entertaining about that particular Tourette's-like outburst is that I had the same kids in an honors thesis course 2 years later. In the first lecture, one lecture a week, the first lecture I said, didn't I warn you? This is February of 09. I said, didn't I warn you that the banking system was going to collapse? They said, yeah, you did. And I said, did your econ professors tell you that? They said, no. And I said, what are those assholes paid for? But what people don't understand is that universities are this funny combination of free speech and academic freedom. We're supposed to foster speech, and that means dumb speech. That means sometimes hostile speech, right? And you know that drill. And then the president denounced him, same president, the one I didn't really like, the one who denounced me. And she said, this is only the second time I've denounced something a faculty member said. And I go, yeah, I was the first.
What about the then provost, now the president, who was your friend who denounced you? Did that affect your friendship?
No, not a bit. They were just trying to put out a fire, and I was ready for the fire to be put out. What helped is several trustees wandered in the president's office and said, don't even think about doing something stupid here. So I had, one day I put out a tweet, talk about how lovely Cornell is. Cornell is a phenomenal institution. So my loyalty to Cornell is tainting my vision, but Cornell is not like the other Ivies. It's not Harvard. It's not Princeton. It's in the middle of this idyllic setting we have 200 gorges. The people at Cornell are self-selected. They're the ones who want to live here, right? If there was a college in your neighborhood, it would be filled with people who love the outdoors. It would be filled with people who like this way of life, right? Cornell has that. And so, and by the way, it's ranked number 1 in a critical category. It has more top 10 ranked departments than any school in the country. And that's because we have so many different things going on here. So it's a very special place.
So the letter denouncing you was really just kabuki. I mean, it was
kabuki. Yeah, it was trying to just put out the fire, and it did. And I paid a price. I lost a consulting gig at Pfizer because of it, because I was now a Nazi, and
wait, Pfizer didn't stand by you?
I'd consult there for 20 years, and they were going to Zoom consulting. And Pfizer doesn't need a controversial consultant either. So they just cleared the deck as well. So I don't hold it against. What I hold against Pfizer is the vaccine. I don't hold. The guys I consult with at Pfizer were great guys. And Pfizer, they were trying to get their job done right and stuff like that. And so,
why do you, as an organic chemist, why do you hold the vaccine against them?
Because I think it killed a lot of people. And they knew it. I read so I started writing about COVID right away. You can imagine, right? As scientists, I started networking. I started trying to figure it out. I'm in a group called Doctors for COVID Ethics for 4 years, where we had every major anti-vaxxer on the planet go through this group.
Wait, so you're a consultant to Pfizer. You're a pretty famous, probably one of the most famous organic chemists in the country. So if you say the Pfizer COVID vax killed a lot of people, it can't be dismissed as crank talk.
Well, it could be, because I'm not a vaccine expert. I'm an organic chemist. So I have certain technical skills that probably help me burrow, and it's the genetics major as an undergrad. That helps me. I don't use the biochem or the genetics, but it allows me to sort of read stuff. And
but you think it killed a lot of people?
Well, the Pfizer papers, which are papers written about the clinical trials in the VAERS database, show huge number of problems, right? And so the doctor for COVID ethics, we had every famous anti-vaxxer. One of the first ones I went to, it was Bobby Kennedy, and we had you name it. You name an anti-vaxxer. You name the Malones, the Ryan Coles, the Brian Artises, you can go on and on and on. They all went through this group. And we talked about things. 3 or 4 years became.
Is anyone keeping track of how many Americans were killed by it?
Well, it's very hard because, first of all, every flu death got absorbed into the COVID stats. So flu disappeared, which can't be true. And if it did because we were locked down, then how'd we all get COVID, right? So there's now studies coming out from other countries because we have too many people who will look very bad when this data comes out. But the Japanese, for example, have come out and said some very strong things about what didn't happen. The head of the Japanese medical system, I think, came out and said that you could correlate the number of deaths with the number of shots, right? And so it's now that the gag order's been released, scientific studies are making it into the literature, and there's already thousands.
It's got to be one of the great man-made disasters of our lifetimes.
The lockdown too. I think you mentioned, or someone did in one of your podcasts, about the travesty. Maybe it was Walter, about the travesty of locking down. You show me. You tell me how old a kid is, and I can tell you what subjects he does not or she does not know. So if you were studying trigonometry the year that everything was locked down, you don't know trigonometry at all. We pretended to teach them. They pretended to learn. Nothing happened.
And do you see that now?
Well, you could see it going through the system. So, for example, our first-year grads who were taking organic chemistry, during lockdown, when they showed up, they were very weak in organic chemistry. Yeah. You can see it. So think of the poor kid who's 5 years old trying to learn how to read and write, and everything's through a mask, right? And there's imprinting periods, right? There's periods where you learn to read and write, or you're kind of in trouble. And so it was disastrous. It was absurd. And the whole thing was done by Fauci.
But how could?
And our Zoom group, by the way, had Scott Atlas. And so I asked Scott. I said, Scott, was it malicious? Fauci and Birx, did what they do was malicious? And I think it was. I mean, I think there's evil forces behind those two, but he took a different tact. He said, you cannot fathom how stupid those two are. That was his answer. He said, Fauci never gave a scientific argument, never. And he said, one day, this is astonishing. He said, one day, this is all recorded, so I'm not, talking behind his back. There is a recording on the internet with this. He says one day he walks in with a scientific paper that Atlas had read. And so he's thinking, whoa, Fauci's actually going to say something scientific. Fauci went to say encephalomyelitis. Now, if you work at the 7-Eleven, you might stumble on that one. But if you're head of the entire health organization, you shouldn't. And he said he botched it so bad it was unintelligible. And Atlas said, come again? What'd you just say? And Fauci wouldn't repeat it. He said Birx was yanking shit off the internet, making pie charts, having not a clue what it meant. Not a clue.
That's terrifying.
Now, here's the Chris Malice, though. He didn't speak up, I don't think.
Fauci.
Atlas. I think he sat there.
Can I ask you to back up just a moment, though? Mm-hmm. So you're describing now incompetence, but you alluded earlier to malice. What do you think the dark forces behind Birx and Fauci were?
Well, I think first of all, they love the fact we're talking about whether it came out of a lab in Wuhan, because that way we're debating whether to blame the Chinese or not, right? When in fact, I think it came out of a lab probably in North Carolina. A number of guys have tracked both the disease and the vaccine back years before it showed up on our dinner plate. I think low level of malice would be.
Wait, you think it came out of a lab in North Carolina?
Yeah, Ralph Barrick. Yeah, you can follow. A guy named David Martin has followed the patent trail, and an artificial organism can be patented, not a natural one.
Yes,
and you can follow the patent trail on COVID, and you can follow the vaccine patent trail, and watch it get moved around, move from point A to point B.
If it was created in North Carolina, how did it get to Wuhan? And
because
what was that?
We were funding research in Wuhan because we were not allowed to do gain of function. Sorry, I keep tapping the table.
Oh, it's all right. This is a topic that deserves some table tapping.
I've done podcasts where I have headphones, and I have three Boston Terriers, soon 4, and they snore. I can't hear them because my headphones are noise dampening. And then I listen to the podcast and hear this humongous amount of snoring behind me. So I'm aware of background noise.
You didn't bring the Terriers this morning.
I didn't bring the Terriers, no.
So, but I just want to flesh this out a bit. You think it was created or begun in North Carolina, then brought to Wuhan
to be elaborated, to be studied, so I think we took everything offshore because it got, gain of function got banned in the U.S. But I don't think we banned it. There were something like 36 bioweapons labs in Ukraine of U.S. origin.
Yes.
So why is Ukraine perfect? Ukraine's perfect. To run a bioweapons lab, you need first world infrastructure.
Yep.
And third world people to test shit on. Ukraine's pretty much got that, right? Because Fauci, for example, in the United States, when he had to do clinical trials, when one of his lower rank, they'd go to foster care. They would do clinical trials on foster children.
What?
Yeah, you got to read Kennedy's book. Yeah. He did an estimate. They used an estimated 14,000 foster kids to do clinical trials. They said the kids would figure out they're getting sick and they wouldn't want to take the meds.
That's like Nazi.
So I think Fauci's been doing damage to people and killing people for many, many years.